guys, this is Austin with Hot Rod Heaven. I'm here with Kevin today to talk a little bit about his ride. It's a little different from the channel. You know, we don't do imports too much, but you know, we'll say it's a little bit of a half breed here. I'm actually super excited to do this car because Kevin, 28 years old, built this thing in the garage here, which is pretty sweet, man, because there's not a lot of people that can build a car that looks like this right here in this little small 2-car garage. Super inspiring stuff. Tell us about what the car is and how you even got this thing.
So this is a 1975 Datsun 280Z. I always had in mind that it was gonna be a project car, but never thought it would go to this extent for, you know, budget's concern and time. So when I first got the car, it was blue. It had a small block Chevy in it, like maybe a 350 or a 305. It did have a 5-speed in it, but it was nothing really that you could be super proud about. But it built a foundation of kind of what I knew I wanted. I was always used to having inline sixes in these cars. I went from, you know, turbo L series motors to a 2J in my last one, and I wanted something with just more instant torque basically, and I didn't really have that with the 2J car. Originally I was thinking, okay, maybe I'll put budget LS in it, and it kind of just was a never-ending rabbit hole of, well, let me buy this. Oh, maybe I'll fix some rust here. And man, I eventually put it on a rotisserie, and right from that point, I knew, here we go. This is gonna be a full-on nut and bolt restoration. And 4 years later, a lot of time, a lot of money, finally got it finished.
Yeah, and that's what's crazy to me is that you had this thing on a rotisserie in the garage and in your driveway, dude.
Right here. Every time I needed to work on it, roll it out into my driveway, push it back in when I'm done.
Yeah,
but
man, that's crazy.
It was tough.
And it's pretty wild too, because I know you were saying like you felt like you got a little bit in over your head.
Exactly.
And I mean, I think that's probably happens to a lot of people who are building these cars. And it's what I really respect a lot too is like you did get into that moment, but you didn't give up. You know, a lot of people, you'll just scrolling on Facebook Market, you'll see half-done projects and whatnot. So I think it's pretty special, especially with the circumstances of while you were building it, that you were able to finish the car. I think that's pretty awesome.
There was multiple times throughout this project that, you know, I thought that I'm in over my head, man, and geez, I don't know if I can even afford to proceed with my vision of what I want. But, you know, just kept knocking off the little things. And, you know, once you get to a point where you can physically see a difference in your project, like for instance, going through the metal stage of it.
Yeah.
The dirty work of that and just feeling like nothing's getting done, but then finally putting it in epoxy, like that 1 hour job of spraying the epoxy on it finally gave me that extra push of motivation, like, oh, something's getting done.
Exactly.
But it took months of metal work to get to that point. Some of the metal work that I did was I shaved all of the side marker lights. I did shave some of the mirror holes that go into the doors. And then I also shaved the gas lid door. So originally the gas lid is on the passenger side of the car. I went ahead and shaved that. I wanted to have more of a muscle car look, and now I have a flip down tag that I can fill from.
That's
so
awesome,
it's a rear fill port, so now I can pull up to any gas pump I want to, and doesn't matter what side of the pump I'm on.
Man, that is super cool. Now that we've got the hood lifted up, tell me a little bit about the motor in here, because this is awesome. I love to see American muscle in some imports, so this is sweet. Tell me a little bit about this.
So this engine is an LS7. It's an aluminum-based LS motor with 427 cubic inches. It does have LS7 casted heads that are ported from Frankenstein, and then it's also got a ported MSD atomic intake manifold and a lot of other goodies too. It's got a forged rotating assembly, Callie's crank, Johnson lifters, you name it. When I originally was building this project, I had plans, you know, like I was saying, kind of budget friendly. I had my eyes set on maybe like an LS3 pull out of like maybe like a junker Camaro.
Yeah, for sure.
But I actually had a C6 Z06 at the time when I was looking for engines, and unfortunately I hurt the motor in that car. So I ended up swapping another 427 into that car. This block luckily was in good shape, just the bare block. I bent the crank, so all I had to work with was the bare block. So I converted it from a dry sump to a wet sump. I had to buy every nut and bolt for it, so I don't know if it was the smartest route to go because it nickel and dined me all the way through. But now I get to say I've got my C6 Z06 engine in my Datsun, so it was pretty cool. It was kind of like a full circle feeling.
Did you have to do like any sort of modification or anything to even fit this in, or did it just set in there pretty perfect?
So luckily with these cars, especially the 280Z, transmission tunnel is a little bit wider, but not only that, you do get this large engine bay because they come originally with a straight 6, and even though it's only like a 2.0 8-liter engine. It's fairly big. But yes, I did have to modify the engine mounts. These specifically are from Hawk's 3rd Gen Racing. But what those mounts do is it allows the engine to sit a little bit lower. Not only that, but it ties into the actual frame of the car. So you have to do a little bit of welding on the frame, and then it ties into the subframe. So you get not only a low sitting center of gravity for the engine, but you also get the structural integrity of the engine connected to the frame and not just the subframe. The transmission is a brand new Magnum T56F. The F model fits pretty good to where it centers the shifter in the original hole.
Oh, nice.
So kind of playing off of what you were asking about the fitment, that too also fits pretty nice in the stock location.
Yeah, that's
so
awesome.
not too much cutting up.
For sure. So. And I bet this thing is freaking fun, just grabbing gears and going, dude. So let's move on to the exterior car. First, let's talk about the paint, because this freaking color is immaculate. It's crazy to me that you freaking painted this thing here at your house. So tell me a little bit about the color and honestly like your setup that you did to even paint the thing.
The color of the car is a GM color. It's actually atomic orange, and that's the same as that color that my Z06 was. At the time, I still had my Z06, so I was always thinking, you know, popping open the garage door and seeing 2 atomic orange cars, and they both play off of each other because they both got LS7s in them.
Yeah, that's so sick.
It's just a cool...
You got a little tie back to the Z06. Yeah, I love that, dude.
So, like you said, I did paint this car right here in my driveway. I've got a inflatable paint booth. It kind of looks like a bounce house when it's up. Yeah. So, you know, neighbors are driving by. It doesn't raise too much suspicion. It kind of looks like I'm having a birthday party here. Having that paint booth at my disposal was actually pretty cool because I was able to do everything right here at home.
Moving on to the wheels and tire setup, tell me a little bit about what you got going on there.
So these are standard ZG flares to be able to fit like a 9 to 10 inch wheel. So I've got 16 by 9 Watanabe wheels in the front. These are like a classic Japanese wheel. They fit the look very good for, you know, what I was going for. And in the rear, I've got 16 by 10s with a 275 tire. Luckily, tire technology is so good that you don't really need a fat tire anymore to be able to hook. You know, even with all the power and the lightweight of the car, the width of the tires I have do a pretty good job at, you know, keeping it on the road. It's all stock suspension. It's got stock control arms. I do have BC racing coilovers on it, so that gives me a little bit of stability when I'm driving down the road. So the rear end is out of a 1987 300ZX Turbo. It's a very popular and common swap to these cars because you can still retain the stock mustache bar that holds the differential. It's still an R200 based rear differential, and these cars actually come with an R200, but they're open diffs. The gear ratio is a 3.7, probably not as tall as I'd want for the car, just for highway driving, but it does a pretty good job.
What about the brakes that you have on the car?
So I went with a pretty mild setup for the brakes. The front I have R32 Skyline brakes, which are actually found on a 2nd generation 300ZX. Aesthetically, I like the look of the Nissan logo on the brake calipers. For the rear, it's actually a 2014 Mustang kit. Supposedly the brake bias works really good with, you know, my master cylinder setup. Nothing fancy in the back, but I retain a stock parking brake capability. Quick and easily go to any AutoZone or whatever parts store you want and go get some brake pads or replace a caliper if need be.
Also, something that I noticed walking up to the car, the front end looks a little bit different. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this front end here, this is actually called a G-nose. They've become a little bit more popular in the Datsun community. Basically, when I had first started this car, I knew from the beginning I wanted it to look a little bit different. I do like the way that, you know, the standard nose looks, but the G-nose just sets it off to where it kind of has that more JDM feel, especially with the fender mirrors. So that was basically the overall look I was going for, is I really wanted the car to look like it came straight from Japan, but, you know, it's got the power of a Z06 Corvette. Another thing I did was I converted the rear taillights to a 240Z style taillight. I don't really like the look of the 260, 280Z taillights. The conversion is a popular thing that people do, especially changing out the bumpers. These cars in 75 had a pretty big bumper at the time. A lot of cars in 75 were starting to move over to larger 5-mile-an-hour bumpers.
For the safety reasons,
Exactly. So I did put a 240Z bumper on this as well.
So let's move on to the interior here, man. I love it, dude. It looks very original, very classy, doesn't go over the top. Tell me a little bit about this setup here.
Yeah, so exactly like you said, I wanted to keep it original, basically. So as far as aesthetics go, I wanted the seats to not be over the top. I don't really like the look of racing harness seats anymore because now they're so saturated in the market and everybody has them. So I kind of went with a basic style of seat. People that that have Datsuns might notice this. This is a 280Z car, but I actually converted the dash and the center console to a 240Z dash and console. I do like the look of the 240Z dash better than 260 or 280Z. So I went ahead and was able to retrofit that into the car. It's got a Nardi perforated leather steering wheel. Engine management is ran off of a Holley Terminator X. So it is a drive-by-wire car. I'm able to control the throttle body through the ECU. And then my gauges are actually mainly analog, so they do run off of sensors put into the engine block. I believe the tachometer does run off of the Holley ECU, and then I have a GPS speedometer, but they're all made by Speed Hut. They had a, I guess you could call it a collaboration with Datsun cars, so these gauges are basically a mimic of the stock Datsun gauges. So the font and the actual numbers are exact, I guess you could call them replicas of the original gauges. So spinning off of, you know, trying to keep it looking original, but still having the advancement in technology at the same time.
Exactly.
We went ahead and, you know, went with those gauges. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then I know you said you had AC here in the car. Is it like a vintage air setup or?
Yeah, so I've got a vintage air called a Compact 2. So it's a little bit larger than you'd probably want for a small car like this. Not only doing that, but I was able to also utilize the stock controller for the AC. So basically the stock controller that would be in these cars back in the 70s, I still retain, and it functions properly with the vintage air AC system.
Which is awesome because it still keeps that original look, which is what you want, you know what I mean? And then I know that you have a little bit of a roll bar in here. You didn't do this in the garage, did you? Somebody else did this, or?
No, so that cage was actually fabricated by a company out in Australia. You know, pretty excited to see that a company made a good looking cage that is almost bolt in. You still have to weld the mounts in.
But you ended up painting it and everything too to match, and that I think looks stellar, dude.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I think that kind of wraps up the interior portion of this video, dude. I say we get a freaking camera in there and go for a cruise.
Cool.
All right, let's go. Dude, good shit, man.
Oh, man.
That was awesome, bro. Holy moly. Dude, that thing just throws the back so easy. All right, guys, that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. And Kevin, dude, I appreciate you doing this, man. This is a freaking awesome car. For me, it just blows my mind that you were able to build such a spectacular machine in your garage. And I'm sure your dad is really proud of you for this. So, dude, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to feature this thing.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I just wanted to, you know, kind of speak for itself and let it be an inspiration to others that feel like they don't have the time, the money, the motivation to do it. You know, you take one step at a time with your project, you can get it done, and you don't need a whole lot of real estate to get it done. You know, just work slowly, be dedicated. You know, I've got a family, I've got bills to pay, I've got all the stuff a normal guy has, but you know, you can't let it get to your head too much when you feel like you bit off more than you can chew. So just keep at it, keep your head down, and finish your project.
Yeah, stay motivated, because at the end of it all, you could have something that's as beautiful as this, man, and this is freaking awesome. So again, thanks so much for doing this, dude. I really do appreciate it, man. If you guys like this content, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment, and we'll see you next time.